friends. Welcome to episode 178 of Storyteller Conclave. This is a show all about helping you run the best tabletop role-playing game that you can, whether you're a new storyteller or dungeon master learning the craft, or an experienced storyteller looking to take your game to the next level. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Rob.
How we doing, Rob?
I left the tea of water over there. I didn't get a chance to pour our kettle yet, even. I'm off.
Fired.
I
will be doing the show solo tonight.
Hardly. I did want to say, kind of a thank you. We've gotten a whole ton of new listeners. Like, we've been watching our metrics just a little bit over the last month, and actually the last couple months, and we have really spiked. It's been nice. It's nice seeing some new metrics coming in from all over the country and around the world.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
if you're new to Storyteller, thank you. And I know some people are joining us from some of the comments that we've made on Reddit and people directed from there. So you Redditors, we really appreciate you joining us. And we try to hope to continue to make content that will help you.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
The whole point of this is that Sarah and I have doing this for 3 years. We've been doing this for 3 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
The podcast for 3 years.
Yeah, every week for 3 years we've been talking about
storytelling for close to 30 each.
Yeah. And like, that right there is enough, but I think even in just doing this, in the research that we've done and the systems that we've looked at, we've learned so much.
Oh, yeah.
More than what we did in our experience for our games. But our games have gotten critically better.
Oh, they really have.
Critically better.
Both of them. Just amazingly better in just doing this show, because every week we have to research a new topic. We have to look at storytelling from a new angle, and it forces us to up our game so that we can share that with you guys. So it's been a great experience, I think, all around.
Yeah, so we're happy to have you guys with us. We're happy to have you joining us. We'd love to have you in the Discord, and if you don't feel like doing Discord, which I totally get, you can always shoot us a message on Twitter, and if you want to hear about something, or you've got a topic idea or something like that, even just kick us some ideas. We're totally cool with that.
Mm-hmm.
Like this, I'm going to say this. Unlike some podcasts and shows that are on YouTube, they're out there to do this as a job.
Yeah.
We're not. We're literally doing this basically just to make the community better, to spread what knowledge we do have, and try and take care of each other. Because there's new people out there, there's old people who've been getting into this, who are trying different game systems. They're moving away from OSRs, they're moving into their narrative stuff, and people who have done nothing but narrative are now looking at OSRs like, is this something I could do? Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But all of it comes down to story for us.
Yep.
We're not here for the super tactical. We read a lot about it, but we're not here for that. But we want to do better content, so we're always here for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So you had your game last weekend. I
did. It was the end of that short kind of adventure arc that I threw in. It felt really good. It felt really, really good.
As a player at your table, I thought it was really great. I found the whole plot arc very easy to keep track of and stuff like that. Which I know you said it was like, that's really saying something for me, because I usually lose track of plot like instantly.
Yeah.
But I think the greatest thing you did, though, was kind of left the solution to the problem very open-ended. Mm-hmm. And that's something I'm gonna dive back into that later more in depth. But like, the fact that the solution to the problem that you offered us was very open-ended, and you're just kind of like, whatever solution you guys come up with, I think is good. Very empowering to us as players, and it worked out great. It felt like you had it all prepared. Even though we were the ones that came up with that solution.
And I'll paint out the scenario later in a little more detail so we can kind of break that down and my thought process behind it. But I'll flat out say, when I was developing this adventure, the framework was super light.
Yeah.
Like, the hardest part for me in this one is because the only thing that I wrote that was weird about it was the fact that I kind of wrote it backwards, because you guys were discovering events that had already transpired. So there's a little bit of a mystery wrapped into it, but not so much a mystery, so much it was an investigation of, okay, what are we running across? What are we discovering from this? And that all was laid out for you. There was nothing in this that was in really any way trapped or bound by any skill checks or abilities. I basically gave you guys carte blanche of like, hey, you've went into this area. This is what you see. And as you started looking around, you made discoveries. And I kept it exceptionally narrative in that direction, and only really brought the D&D mechanics in for the fights.
Yeah.
I mean, I kept it that simple to simplify the adventure, to make it more streamlined.
Yeah, yeah. And I thought that the fight was really well balanced. It was tense.
Yeah.
It was very tense. It was the first time in a while that we have been severely challenged from a combat standpoint.
And you guys are not low level.
No, we're level 11.
Yeah.
We're level 11. So
we've got a full fighter, like a without question straight up fighter, who's a battle master. Mm-hmm. We have a straight up wizard.
Yep.
Who's
Two straight up wizards.
Yeah, divination wizard, and you, who is basically a elementalist and conjurer.
Yeah, evoker with a strong backbone of conjuration.
We have a combat cleric. Effectively, and a rogue.
Straight up assassin rogue.
Assassin rogue.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's a good DPS group overall, and you guys really moved through it well. Like, I made it challenging for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
I had some ideas on things that could happen and what that would require, and I thought I made it very clear within that what the consequences were if events were to transpire in a certain direction.
Yeah.
And again, we'll get to the actual combat of that a little bit later, but yeah, I felt you guys had a very strong grasp on it. Mm-hmm. And I think the only thing that I want to add to that is that at the very end, it really, really, as a storyteller, it really warmed my heart that all of you had a clean grasp on the lore and plot that I handed you guys all this time, that you finally all started clicking together.
Yeah.
In a clean method where you were just like, we know what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted this act to eventually come to that, and I think it took me taking this adventure to kind of give you the pieces and reiterate it all in a clean path.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it felt good. It felt really good.
Right. I got my game coming up this weekend.
You do. Are you stressing? Because I know you've been stressing.
I'm stressing a little bit, if only because I was stressing for a while because I was dealing with quite a bit of writer's block. And I had an idea of, like, I knew the major beats I wanted to take place during this next part of the story. There is an old friend coming in from out of town that you guys are going to be interacting with, and you're going to be taking your first journey into Apocrypha, the realm of oblivion.
Yeah, we've got the vampire that literally was involved in the last act with me specifically.
Yeah,
coming back.
Yeah. So
who told me to get the F out of his house, basically at the end, which was fantastic.
You did bring a magical undead slaying sword into the house of of the vampire count.
I did, and then he took me to his wife and said, "If this is to go down this way, you better make this nice and easy for her."
Yeah,
and I was like,
"Just promise me if you end up killing me that you'll take her out nice and clean and gentle and show mercy to her."
Yeah, without a doubt.
And you're like, "Oh, I don't know if I can kill you now."
Yeah, exactly. And it was like, oh, okay, this just got real personal with everybody else here.
Yeah, it really did. So he's kind of rejoining the squad because of the actions of one of the other players at the table, who invited him along. Essentially, it was not a plot arc I was planning on before, but he's here now.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like I said, I kind of knew that the major narrative beats that I wanted to do. The problem is that I was having trouble finding a balance for like how I wanted things to unfold. Like, clearly you guys know you are going into this infinite library realm of Apocrypha.
Right.
And, that is this like, basically Cthulhu's library.
Yeah, with all of Cthulhu trapments.
And, but I didn't want to just be like, rawr, and you're set upon by tons of monsters, fight for your lives. Right. But at the same time, I also didn't want it to be like, and you stroll through the park.
Yeah.
You smell the roses along the way, and then you find the thing you're looking for,
Mm-hmm.
So finding what I wanted to do in there and making it work well from a mechanic standpoint within Savage Worlds was really where I was struggling.
Right.
I will tell you, I got on the Discord for another fellow podcast, Savage Interludes. That is
you've talked about them.
all about the Savage Worlds game system and such like that. Asked around there. A couple people gave me some really good advice that I took wholeheartedly. Turns out I was like 90% of the way there anyways.
Good.
But they confirmed that 90% and they gave me the extra 10%.
Sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes that's all you need.
So now I am stressed out, not because I don't have an idea, but because I only got this idea a week before my game, and now I'm in a frenzy to write. I got a bunch of painting done over the weekend, and now I've just got to finish off some of my notes.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, I cannot wait for Sunday. I think that will be fun.
I'm really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to it.
So that, in a weird way, brings us around to today's topic.
Yeah.
And today's topic is going to sound like a revisit, because it kind of is.
Yeah, from like 3 episodes ago.
Yeah, which is weird, but we kind of did that one in a more focused sense.
Well, that one was a 101.
Right.
So that one was more designed to be like the broad overview for beginners, and we kind of wanted to come back to the same topic and really touch on some stuff that we didn't get to in that discussion, but also kind of give it the 201 treatment.
Yeah, and oddly enough, this has come up a lot in the last month in DM Academy on Reddit. It's come up a lot in r/RPG if you're on Reddit. Just a few things on Instagram that I ran across where people were talking about this, and that is the idea that of investment and hooks and getting your players involved in the story and keeping them involved in the story.
Yeah.
Being a struggle. And it's odd the ways that I'm seeing it, because it's not obvious out there. Like, if you take a cursory glance and you read the headlines and you read a couple lines into some of these things, you're not going to see that this is about hooks or about investment. But once we start into this, I think you're going to start seeing this a lot easier.
Yeah.
So when we talk about investment, which we had in a discussion in episode 175, which is back on the 7th of this month.
September 7th, yeah.
Yep. We're talking about when players and characters, we're putting those together, care about aspects of the world. Whether they're NPCs, whether they're places, whether they're events, whether they're histories, the local town, whatever, right? It's, when we say care, it's their buzz, their
enthusiasm,
that's a good
for various aspects, whether it's their drive to join a certain organization, become a knight or whatever, or if it is a certain character that spurs them forward of like, I have to defend this person, or I have to defeat this person, or something like that. It's that intangible part of the story that has hooked them in and inspires them to move forward of their own volition, that gives them a vector of movement in the story.
Yeah, it's the players interested in taking care, interested when after going into a city and hearing about an orphanage there, they want to take care of the orphanage. And that was literally a sidebar that you had thrown in there about the town.
Yeah.
Like, that's investment. They're interested in that.
Sure.
And when we say investment, we're not saying that they are plot hooks. That is not the same thing. A plot hook is you setting out a piece of the story that players can be interested in.
Yeah.
You're laying out that, children have been taken from the town recently. They've gone missing. And the story is that, they're not too sure what's going on, but you find out from one of the kids that there's a cave nearby that they were all interested in. That's a plot hook.
Sure, that's a plot hook, yeah.
It's interesting, and it may spur interest, but it's not something that they're already invested into.
Right.
I mean, it could be technically, but...
Yeah. And so... It really kind of it diverges into that when like plot hooks are what you use to try to add motion to your players to get them to move in a certain direction, hence why it's called a hook.
Right.
You sink that hook in and then you start reeling them in a certain direction,
right?
Like a fish. If your players are invested, if they truly care, you'll find that they have motion all on their own. And I think that's a really big thing that separates the two of them.
Yeah, and using investment within a hook is always great. Like I was saying,
absolutely.
If the players are already interested, like, hey, you've got a cave that you want them to go and identify or go into for whatever reason.
Well, yeah, you bait the hook with something they're invested in.
Exactly.
So here's an NPC you already said you care about. They've been kidnapped.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, obviously we have to go save her.
Right.
There you go.
There you go.
Now, baited the hook with something you've invested in.
And that could be anything. Again, we're not saying that you start knowing what that bait is. Mm-hmm. The bait is what your players are interested in. And that's where it starts getting gray. Now, the role behind all of this and what we're talking about, whether we're talking about a hook or whether we're talking about investment, is getting player buy-in.
Yes.
You need them to want to do it. They have to have a stake.
Yeah.
In what's going on. You can't force them into that role play.
You can lead a horse to plot, but you can't make them role play.
Exactly. Like, in a board game, the board moves in a specific direction. There's a rule set that pushes you in that direction. It's railroading you. Straight up. This rules will do that to you.
But in a tabletop RPG, you're generally sitting there going, okay, what do you guys want to do? And unless you've got some player buy-in, I think, most of us who've played more than a few games have sat at a table with someone who's just kind of sits there mute.
Yeah.
Or just kind of shrugs their shoulders or outright plays a character that is, I would say, hostile to the plot in the way that they're like, well, my character doesn't think about any of these things. My character is a lone wolf who doesn't care about anyone but themselves. He doesn't care if people got kidnapped. He leaves. Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So, what does your character do?
Yeah.
Why are you in the game? Yeah. Why is this character a dramatis personae in this story?
Exactly.
And those are examples of like not having that buy-in. You need character buy-in does require like an investment from your players. It requires them to want to engage with the content, and it's unfortunately one of those aspects that you cannot force as a storyteller.
No. And to make a point, Knox had just made a point out here and saying, like, having bait that I'm already acquainted with is better than unfamiliar bait. 100% agree. Kidnapping my friend, I'll go for that. Random missing children, why does my narcissistic character care? And that's a key right there. I'm going
We'll get back to that word, narcissistic.
Right, we'll get back to that. But the point is that everybody at the table has a different care. Yeah. They have a different reason for buy-in. Yes. Whether there's the person who sits at the table who is looking at their character sheet wondering how to crunch or fight or tactically be advanced, that's what they're looking for. Yep. They're not going to give probably two cats about those kids. But they're going to be interested in maybe
the combat that will involve getting those kids back. Maybe we can get into a fight with whoever kidnapped them.
There's a monster in there?
Yeah.
Oh, I like the idea of going after a monster.
You've got some who want great RP moments and can go weeks without rolling a die.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are going to want the melodrama of those frightened kids being rescued from the scary monster and being returned to the weeping, frightened mothers who thought that was the last time they'd seen their little babies.
Exactly. They're going to buy into that. There's going to be people who are want to tell a story. There's going to be someone who's going to want to be that power fantasy person who steps out and becomes heroic by defeating the monster in the cave and standing triumphantly back in town with the children wrapped around them in the dawn when everybody wakes up.
Exactly. Cape flowing in the wind.
Exactly. Their golden hair,
And you're going to want to talk to your players about the specific things that they're looking for out of the game. Right. Because first off, like I said, everybody wants something different out of the game, and you're not necessarily going to know this off the top of your head.
No.
There's a thing. I think a lot of people who have ever taught anybody anything, trainers at work and whatnot, know that there is science behind how people learn. Mm-hmm. Some people learn visually, some people learn by doing, some people can learn by example. Yep. Things like that. And knowing how you learn best helps a teacher teach you in a way that you will learn best. Yep. And it's kind of the same thing with storytelling. Everybody gets something different out of the game, so you as the storyteller are kind of in that trainer position where you want to know what type of players you've got sitting at the table. You want to know what components of your story they are going to get the most excitement out of, and therefore you'll know where their buy-in is going to be. Okay? If you've got a bunch of crunch combat monsters, you can throw monsters at them to fight all day long. But on the other hand, if you've got a bunch of, people who just love melodrama and want to get involved in those dramatic story beats and have romance and horror and all those highs and lows of emotion, well, then you want to lean into your NPCs, and really write rich characters that they can get to know and get involved and invested in,
Mm-hmm. And that is a balance on its own of having all of those things in play with everybody at your table. And some people will lean into others, and you'll get the idea that you might have to spotlight a little bit of combat, and then a little bit of drama, and then a little bit of this, and you'll find people will bend in different directions because it's entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the entertainment that they want for that moment, and some people will change for a specific show. Like we do it with a lot of our shows. We'll start off with, how is everybody doing? Just that day.
Yeah.
What are you looking for? Do you want this to be a low-impact game? Are you ready for story?
Vibe check.
Yeah, it's a straight-up vibe check at the beginning of the game because you may have an idea that, this person is really going to want drama, so you've got that ready to go. This person wants combat, so you've got a little extra combat involved in this chase. This person is really going to be into, making sure that their character gets the spotlight, so you've got some options there where they can step up into that, all of those things. And then you come to hit the table, and whatever happened last week has kind of dulled everybody. Yeah. They're all tired. They're all, maybe it rained. Maybe the weather was bad. Power was out, so they were struggling. And now they're all like, okay, I'm really tired about this. Can we maybe just tone it down a little this week and do something simple? And you're like, yeah, let's roll this back.
Sure.
And just we have to switch it up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. There's also an aspect of buy-in. Not just for the individual game, like you were just explaining, but for the scope of a specific game or story.
Oh, like one-shots versus campaigns,
yes.
or an adventure series.
Yes.
Okay.
So, like, for one-shots, for instance, a type of buy-in that you're going to be asking for, like, we all have an agreement that this isn't an open world.
Right.
We're all here to tell a very specific story for this one-shot. We've got 4 hours to start and complete this story.
Right.
Let's try to keep it on the rails as much as possible. Let's lean into the story. If I say you're standing in front of the haunted house, that's where the story is. Don't say my character leaves and goes to the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think that happens, that understanding comes a lot tighter at things like conventions and things like that, where you've got the hard time.
Yes.
Like, when you're hanging out with your friends, you have to state that that's what it is ahead of time. You have to make that kind of commitment. And at the same time, get a little advanced buy-in on, like, what they're going to want out of it.
Yeah.
Because although you're telling that story and you're planning it one shot and this is what you're expecting to do with it, you need to know from them what they're looking for out of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
for longer games too, I think one of the big areas of buy-in is you're asking for an agreement that we're all going to create a character that fits in the scope of the story or the world.
Yeah.
So, like, no hobbits. And I don't mean that from a racial standpoint. I mean that from the standpoint of an archetype.
In The Hobbit.
Yeah, no, like, we're a band of dwarves. Fine, I'm making a hobbit that doesn't want to go on the journey. Okay, that sounds like fun.
Yeah, that's going to be great.
Conversely, no 13th Warriors.
Yeah.
We're a band of Vikings who are going off on a thing to slay our enemies. I make an Arabian poet.
Yeah.
Cool.
You have no combat abilities? None whatsoever.
No brooding lone wolf edgelords that don't talk to anyone else, or narcissists who wouldn't want to go and rescue kids that have been kidnapped.
Yeah, and no PvP.
And no PvP.
Don't backstab each other. Like, these are the things that you set up within your story. Now, on the other hand, if you're running like an Amber campaign where you're expecting those types of things, stating what you're okay with and what you're expecting. You're expecting them to be cutthroat with each other as the story goes on. Great. Okay, perfect. Dune might be the same way. Like, there are secrets between you and there are secrets without you. Figure you guys are going to have dramatic moments. Make sure that you're very clear that this is in character or out.
Yep.
And do not stab each other out of character.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Like, and those are the types of things you present before the story starts, before the first character gets thought of.
Yeah.
So that they know going into character creation that they're ready. That they have not only the guides for character creation, but they have a full understanding of what the story really is and what their part in it is.
Well, exactly, because the better equipped they are going into character creation. From a storyteller standpoint, the more you arm them with information about what the campaign is going to involve, the more chance that they're going to have fun in that campaign. If you sit down and say, "Hey, we're going to play some D&D," I can draw some inferences there. But if you say this is going to be a mystery, I think to myself, oh, cool, maybe I'll make an inquisitive rogue, or I'll make a divination wizard, classes that specialize in information gathering and usage.
Well, even if you go beyond that, like we were talking about, you set up a general theme, like, hey, we're going to be doing an Expanse-style game, so it's going to feel very tense, where, like, the vacuum of space sucks.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be, and it's going to be empires and corporations versus the common man, and you will all be the common man, whether you've been forced down to it or you've grown up to a point where you're not just the typical common man. That's the kind of feel that I'm looking for out of this. That paints a clean picture and starts them down the road of building that character in their mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you as a storyteller feel better. It always like, looking back on some of even my earliest stories, that is some of the things that made them not work well. Because I had random people making random characters in a giant, massive setting, and then trying to tell a mystery story with people who didn't give two hoots about the mystery because their characters never did.
Yeah.
Like, you can't get to where you need to go.
You get all that randomness in there, and it's like trying to get people to agree on pizza toppings,
Oh my God, yeah.
You want to tell one cohesive story, but, somebody wants anchovies, and somebody wants peppers, and somebody can't have peppers, and somebody wants a meat pizza, and somebody's a vegan.
Yeah, or the one example that I gave earlier, which was like, hey, Friday night, we're going to go, do you guys want to all go out to dinner? I found this place called Espelio. Oh, okay. Oh, so I'll meet you guys there. Here's the address. And nobody looks the place up because they can't find it. So they all make assumptions. One person, one couple gets very dressed up because it's a night out. Like, that's what this person said, right? And then somebody else is like, Espelio. It sounds Spanish. I mean, maybe it's Mexican food?
Yeah.
And so they're like, all right, well, I'll just dress casual, whatever it'll be, but maybe we'll get some drinks, kind of a thing. And then the last person's like, yeah, I'm wearing T-shirts and a drink. And everybody shows up. And it's a buffet. Just a buffet. Oh, I just picked this place because I figured anybody could get what they wanted. It was kind of an okay buffet. That's the thing. That now everyone already has mixed expectations and mixed feelings. The couple who literally got a sitter to go to a buffet with their friends on a Friday night.
Yeah.
Like, okay, great, but now you're here and everyone has those odd feelings. If you set them up for success by letting them know as much as you can, they feel better about making those characters and feel more driven into it.
Exactly. And you're also set up for more success too, because you have more heroic moments when you have the skills to interact with the type of story that you're looking for.
Yep.
Like I said earlier about like an inquisitive rogue or a divination wizard in a mystery story is like, you're going to have those moments where, like, okay, you're going to have to find the one clue in this room, and you're like, I just rolled a 28 on my investigation check.
Fantastic.
Why? Because I've got a skill that gives me advantage, and I've got proficiency and expertise in it, etc. I've got the skills to do a high investigation check, and that makes me feel like a hero in the scope of the story.
Right. And the other part of that is that makes you, as a storyteller, easily understanding where the weaknesses and strengths are.
Yes.
It makes it easier to tell the story without a doubt.
Yep.
Now, is this all just railroading?
Well, how do you do this all without railroading is the big question.
I feel like a lot of people would feel like this is pigeonholing and railroading because you're not giving, proper agency, if you will. They can't just be whatever they want to be. So let's talk about
storytellers.
Yeah,
gather around the podcast here.
Yeah, we're gonna get on our box because we have a mic.
Scooch it in a little closer here. We're gonna have a little talk about this word railroading
and how many times it gets misused.
Because so I was even listening to Brendan Lee Mulligan.
You named him.
Probably my favorite storyteller. And no, I'm not calling him out. I'm just using him as the reason I'm using him as an example is because he is the storyteller I hold in highest esteem.
Okay.
And So that being said, I consider him someone extraordinarily learned in the art of storytelling.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard him misuse the term railroading. Mm-hmm. And again, not a call-out post, just as an example of like hey. even Brennan misuses it sometimes. That's how common it is, you know.
That's fair.
So let's be very clear about what we're talking about when we say railroading. Okay, it is removing the player's agency and forcing your plot to happen, regardless of the PC's choices. Okay, and that's the important part. Okay, putting the PCs in a situation where they don't feel like they have a choice one way or another. Okay, sometimes that happens. Sometimes you are put to the wall, you know. That in and of itself isn't railroading. Railroading is like, I want you guys to go through door A. Okay, well, we don't want to go through door A. We go through door B. Door B is locked. Okay, we go through door C then. Door C is
doesn't go anywhere.
It doesn't go anywhere.
It's a closet.
There. Okay, so the only door left is door A. Yeah. Okay, I guess we go through door A. You know, that's railroading. Mm-hmm. When you give your players a choice mm-hmm. and they don't choose the thing you want, and then you force them to go back and change their choice so that it's the choice you wanted them to make.
Right.
Okay. Now, there are ways around this. Mm-hmm. There are things that skirt the realm of railroading, but the important part is that when you do these things, the players don't know that they're being railroaded into a choice. There's the illusion of free will, and we'll get to that in a moment, you know. But the players never feel like they lose agency.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. If you had a room full of bad guys who were waiting for them in the warehouse, and your players, you know, don't go through the door into the warehouse, so instead they decide that they're going to go into, you know, the you know, officer quarters to steal clothes and try and blend in, and you just move all of those guys into the officer quarters. Is that railroading?
No, that's quantum ogres.
Correct, that's quantum ogres, because you literally put them in a different room. On the other hand, if you like, oh, yeah, you took a wrong turn going to the officer's quarters and find yourself in an open warehouse.
Yeah.
Okay, that's literally taking away the fact that they wanted to go to the officer's quarters to do something specific, and you literally forced them away from it.
Yep. Okay, so that is railroading.
That is railroading.
Things that are not railroading.
Yep.
Events unfolding that are out of your PC's control.
A dramatic event. Sometimes things happen. Do you think that Jack and Rose on the Titanic had any say in whether it hit the iceberg or not? Nope. That's called a hard move. Yep.
Sometimes they happen. The PCs do not always have to have a say or the agency to affect everything in your world.
Another one for me is Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Gimli and Legolas literally like watching the explosive come up to the wall and trying to stop it. Mm-hmm. Doesn't immediately tell them, hey, there are explosives in this. We'll use those later. No. It was a dramatic event. It was meant to show something specific. It was not meant to change the world so that you guys could start using explosives.
Right.
And researching them. You know, that's the difference there.
Let's see here. Obvious plot hooks that fall into their laps.
Yeah.
Are not railroading.
No.
Just because someone walks in and goes, hey, you look like stalwart adventurers. I want to hire you for this job. You're not railroading them into taking the job. They can still say no. There's still a dozen ways they can do the job, even if they take it, etc., etc. But walking up to them and handing them a plot hook to their faces, not railroading.
Yep.
Realistic consequences of PC's actions or inactions.
Yeah.
If you do a thing, and then that thing comes back to bite you in the butt, that is not railroading. That's just the consequences of your actions.
Yeah. If the town has a guard, and there are rules in the town probably about murder, and you commit murder because you wanted to kill everybody in the bar, guess what? You're gonna go to jail or have to murder the entire town.
Yeah. And when 50 guards show up to apprehend you because you're a level 12 adventurer and they know what level 12 adventurers get like.
Yeah.
You know, when you can bend time and space, they're going to send more than 2 dudes.
Yeah, or they literally go to the highest noble and ask him to get a sorcerer to ensorcel you.
Yeah.
Yeah, That happens.
Well, you railroaded me into the jail. No, we didn't.
No, you didn't.
No, we didn't.
Literally, your reputation preceded you.
We literally just used the right tool for the job.
Now, on the other hand, well in jail, if the guy comes to you and says, I'll let you out if you do this job for me. Again,
that's a plot hook.
That's a plot hook. That would have happened whether they were in jail or not.
And then lastly, I've got NPCs being insistent that the PCs follow a course of action. Just because my NPC is yelling at you that you need to go and do this thing right now doesn't mean the storyteller is railroading you into doing that thing.
Right.
Sometimes people just yell at you.
Yeah. And you can, again, still say no.
You can still say no.
You can walk away and they can still consider you a jerk.
You can even choose how to do that thing.
Yeah.
But being insistent that you have to do a thing right now is not railroading.
Do you ever let your players buy themselves out of being arrested? I think it would depend on the situation.
It really depends on the situation.
100% depends on the situation. So
I think if you're talking about beat cops, town watch sort of
guys.
Always.
Yeah,
always.
The dingier the town, the easier it is to do it.
10 gold should cover this. I didn't see a thing.
Yep.
Cool. Have a good night, officer.
Nice. Yep. Best yet, that guy doesn't take that 10 gold. He immediately goes and gives it to the homeless or gives it to the shelter. Because he knows why you're there and what's going on, but at the same time has a heart for the city.
Yep.
So,
all right. So we're throwing the word agency around a lot.
Yeah.
In this sort of railroading discussion here. Let's talk a little bit about the importance of agency versus following your plot. What is more important, giving your players agency or doing the thing that you wrote in your notes?
So I think that right there, the statement of doing the thing you wrote in your notes is the problem that we've always discussed, which is you've gone too far.
Oh yeah.
You've no longer said this is the motivation and direction. You're saying these are the events that are about to transpire.
Right.
Putting somebody into a situation is not writing out the entire events to say, okay, now that they're in the situation, they're either going to leave it this way or this way, which will lead them to this thing or this thing, which will then cause them to make these decisions to do this or this. You're literally crafting a story, a choose-your-own-adventure book where they don't get agency, they get choices.
Yeah. And
that's the problem, is you, flat out, if you're doing this in your games, stop it.
And this is really what does lead to railroading. Mm-hmm. This is the straight line straight to railroading, is because if you've spent all this time and energy preparing these intricate chain of events that you want the story to follow and the players to experience, and then if your players use their agency to go a different direction, now suddenly you feel put on the spot because first off, they're off script, and second off, that also means that the thing that you wrote isn't going to happen. And you're either feeling panicked because you don't feel up to improving the actual scene, or you're feeling slighted because you had this great idea, and they should experience the great idea.
It's you creating expectations that are unrealistic and
unagreed
to. And 90% of all stress related to relationships, and I will flat out say at the table, it is a relationship.
It is.
You have a relationship with your players, is the fact that you have set an mutually committed expectation.
Yeah.
And at that point, yeah, you're gonna be upset because you think that this is the way it should have happened, and they have no idea what you're thinking.
No idea what you've got written down there, and they don't know that they've just quote unquote messed it up for you. You know. And so then you're put in this position where you either have to improv the entire scene, or you then have to force the PCs. You have to railroad them back into the situation that you'd already written down. So what is the easy solution to this? She asked knowingly.
You don't plan for a concrete outcome. You do not script things.
Yeah.
You have it in your notes that says, when this is done, however it's done, this is the next. And that's it.
Yeah.
You have a direction and a vector to go in. And whether that's a person, a place, a thing, a ritual, whatever. Mm-hmm. You just have to accept that the events that will transpose to make that event occur is not going to be what you write.
Yeah.
They will always come up with something. It may be close to what you did.
Sure.
Or what you may think they're doing.
Sure.
But you can't plan for that in any way.
If you know your players well enough and you know their characters well enough and how they play those characters, and stuff like that, you can make some pretty educated guesses, and that makes your note writing and your scenario writing a lot easier. But really, you shouldn't be writing, this will happen and then this will happen. It's more like, this is the setup for the situation. Here are a couple possible outcomes.
Right.
If it goes in this direction, here's some notes about what might happen. If it goes in this direction, here's some notes. But that's about the best you can do. And it's all you should be doing.
Right. Is this where you'd like to interject my adventure?
There's a couple places that I wanted to talk about.
Sure.
Both of our adventures.
Yeah. No, I think you definitely had that.
So your adventure specifically, we were talking a little bit earlier. So the setup was we'd come across these cultists that venerated death, not death in a murderous way, but death as in a gentle passing, a force of nature death.
Yes.
These were more like your average hospice workers rather than like murder cultists. 100%. Right? Okay. So they were like, hey, our god kind of disappeared a while ago, so we were going to do this elaborate thing to try to reach out and touch and get in touch with them.
Yep.
And we're like, oh, no, that's cool. We absolutely respect that. Also, we kind of know what's going on with why your god disappeared, so we kind of want to help you with this because it serves our needs too. The problem is, you guys are using an artifact we need. And if you use it to contact your god, it will destroy this artifact. We respect your desire to use it, but can we work out a solution between the two of us where we help you contact your god, but you do it not using the artifact in a way that you can give it to us afterwards?
Now, from my perspective in writing this scenario, all I did was I am going to present them with death cultists who need to do a ritual using this object. And because it's a ritual, it's going to use up the object.
Yep.
That was literally it. I had the motivation that the death cultist said, this is the one time of the season where all of these energies combine. We have to do it tonight, or we're going to lose our opportunity that happens once in 100 years at least to try and use the energies because we're not that strong.
Yeah, and that putting that time clock on us made it so that we couldn't just be like, well, let's go bring the artifact back to the city, and then we can just give it right back to you like next week.
Right. Like, you ran across these people doing this event. They had planned for it. Like, this group was basically another adventuring group that had planned an event, had gotten the things to the right place at the right time so that nobody would mess with them, and then you walk out of the woods and they're like, a little questioning, but at the same time, the whole point that they're doing this is they're not strong enough to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And there's other problems in the woods, so they've really only got one chance to try this.
Yeah.
And see what's going on. And it's not like they're trying to do something harmful. They're literally just trying to contact their god so that one of them can get away with the information to communicate to the rest of their cult. And let them know what's going on. So it's a humdinger of a problem. And I sat there and went, do I care how you guys figure this out? And I had to literally say, no. All that matters is that the ritual goes off, and I'm going to set two stipulations. One, if the artifact is used, it will be used up in it. There's nothing that's going to be able to correct that.
Yep.
Two, something has to be there to be powerful enough to charge this, and it has to be bound to death in some way.
Yep.
Like, that has to be part of it. And then lastly, I want to make sure that all four of the players, all four of the NPCs that I have are part of the ritual. If one of them drops, that's going to break the ritual. So it has to be replaced quickly. That has to be a known thing. Okay, there we go. Yep. That's all my requirements. I'm not going to say that the ritual is going to fail, but there will be consequences. Now you also know that there are monsters in the woods. I'm flat out going to tell you that they've been chomping through this area, and they're going to come back.
Yep.
And I went, all right, let's see what they do.
Sure.
And that was it. That was literally it. That's all the direction that I had with it. I had a few ideas of, okay, once the ritual is successful, what's going to happen? So I wrote some pieces for that, but I had to write enough that who was involved,
mm-hmm.
like who could be involved. What's the rough way that I want to visualize
this?
Well,
let me sum this one up for you, because it's something I say all the time,
mm-hmm.
and that is, you don't have to write the actions of all of your NPCs. You just have to know what their motivations are and what their directions are. Know how your pieces move when they're pushed against.
Exactly.
So let me ask you this, as
sure.
the person who wrote the scenario. We know what the cultists did when we offered to help them.
Yep.
What would have happened if we were aggressive with them?
If you were to push the cultists,
mm-hmm.
they would have probably tried to do a little defense, and it would have turned into a chase. Because, again, they needed to protect the MacGuffin.
Sure. But you knew that.
Because their whole thing was, we have one shot at this.
Yep.
We need to take care of this and do the best that we can.
So your notes were basically, they will be mistrustful at first, but willing to accept help.
Yep.
Willing to accept a bargain if it looks like it will work in their favor.
Yep.
And will flee from active danger.
Correct. And
boom. And that's all you needed to write
yep.
to extrapolate that into an entire hour and a half long...
Whether you steal it, whether you do whatever, all of that was going to be part of the thing.
Yeah.
You know, oh, okay, you end up roughing them and stealing it and telling them you're sorry. Okay, great. You're sorry you left him in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I now know how that death cult feels about you, but that's it. It's over. You
sure.
guys move on. Sure, that's 100% valid.
Yeah.
You know, ooh woo.
But the fact is, you didn't write all these reactions down.
Not in the least.
Just made some notes about what their motivations were and what they would react to a few common stimuli, and then you're done.
Yeah. And
you can improv all the rest of that.
Yeah, and literally I set you guys at a situation to start the game where you could talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of presented things through the other cultists before you got to that scenario so that you'd have time to really, as a group, make a decision the direction you were going to step through.
Yeah.
So that everybody was on the same page enough that you didn't have like a lone wolf going like, well, I'm going to go sneak over and steal it from the guy or snatch it off the table and we can make a run for it. And then everybody else is standing around like, did he just steal that? Bye! You know, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to present. Not that I expected that out of the group in any way, but I wanted that if that was it, that you guys could fringe it or whatever.
Sure.
You know, and handle that situation the way you wanted to.
Sure, absolutely. You know, one of the other great things about this, and this is kind of where I want to segue into my own game here, is that a lot of times when you offer your players this sort of agency, you can get results that are unexpected, but in a very good way.
Oh, very much so.
A lot of times, so we've talked about this before, your players will come up with ideas that you never would have come up with on your own.
Yep.
Because, quite honestly, I'm sure you'll agree with this statement. Sometimes you get up your own ass about your plot so much that like you lose the forest for the trees.
Oh, so far.
And so you're concentrating on this one little narrow conception you have of your plot that you don't take into account that sometimes your players have just slightly different motivations than yours, and will absolutely just open that can in a completely different direction.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that came out of that in my game was this upcoming scenario with this vampire count of the neighboring town that you guys had interacted with. Before you had your kind of final confrontation with them last time, Sean's character, organically, entirely unprompted, I didn't even set the scene up, he just did it on his own, went and basically said, hey, I scratch your back, you scratch mine. You said you're looking for, information about, a research project and stuff like that. We have a portal to Apocrypha, the biggest extra-dimensional library in existence. You want to come poke around over there and take a look and see if you can find the information you're looking for? And he's like, shit, would I?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, all answers are there. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. It's literally an infinite library. Why would I say no,
Right.
I had no idea that was going to happen. Now, I had planned that the whole Hasseldor plot would happen and would be done. That was, unless you guys revisited Skingrad, where he's Count of, you wouldn't have seen him again. I consider that plot a tied up thread.
Yep.
This has given me an opportunity, however, as a storyteller, to give him an extended cameo, a guest starring appearance, I suppose, in an episode or two here, And we've got like 4 or 5 game sessions worth of pathos behind this character, where you guys all have some pretty strong opinions, to the point where when I mentioned he was going to be coming along on this expedition, 3 or 4 of you at the table went, shit.
Because we all had different ideas of what that meant.
Yeah.
And none of it was like, this is not going to be comfortable.
Yeah, it's all going to be very uncomfortable, because last time you saw him, you almost tried to kill him.
Very uncomfortable indeed.
Exactly. It was super uncomfortable dinner party. But you wouldn't have had that reaction.
No,
otherwise. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to present this like second comeback of this character.
Yeah, it was very organic. It was very, very well presented, because like my character didn't know that he made that deal.
Mm-hmm.
Rob did, but my character didn't. So when it happened, I immediately went to character thought of, I'm going to have to see the guy who literally threw me out of his house after I nearly ran him through with a sword and offered to murder his wife after.
Yeah.
This is going to be awkward.
Welp.
Yeah, this is going to be awkward. It's going to be awkward. I mean, it's been a few months, but that's still not that's going to simmer. That's going to simmer for a little while. But that's the thing is that organically that presents options that you'd never have had thought of, that were never part of anything you were there.
Yeah, wouldn't have.
So this presents us with that concept of you're building a scaffolding, you're building direction and motivation and vectors. You're not building story. You're not writing complete scenes. You're writing a scenario, you're giving some events and adding some stipulations, but not so much that your players can't do it. So in my situation, you guys went ahead and created an illusion over the existing area so that it didn't look like you were there.
Mm-hmm.
And that worked flawlessly because, again, anybody coming into that area, any of the other monsters, wouldn't have noticed you guys were there at all. You all hid inside the illusion, save one of you.
And then I dangled my ice golem
out. To say, don't come walking into the illusion, go after that thing that's just wandering around. Which honestly kind of fits for what was going on in the space. There was all kinds of weird stuff showing up, and they were all about murdering random things.
Yeah.
So it gave a speed bump for some very dangerous creatures.
Yeah.
And then you guys worked your way through the scenario, and again, I had to keep in my mind that they can't see anything inside of that illusion. There was nothing that was telling them that there was anything there.
Mm-hmm.
You guys were literally stepping out from behind rocks and handling the situation handily.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a wonderful presentation, and I just rolled with it. I had no problem with any aspect of it. And it was fun. It was a great encounter. Mm-hmm. You guys had a really good time with it and got to play. You felt the stress that was there, but I didn't change anything about the encounter. I didn't have to.
No, you didn't.
It just rolled through, and then I let the scenario end. And what was interesting was you didn't have your cleric through that whole fight.
Yeah, our cleric was the offering we made up.
Yeah,
it was basically a death cleric. So we're like, use that. Use him instead of the artifact. He's got a direct channel to his own death god.
Yeah, might hurt him. I'm willing to take that hit.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Let's
make
do
the
this
sacrifice.
Thing.
Let's go. Yeah.
So that was enough of a sell of you're willing to invest everything. You're willing to invest one of your own. Yes, by all means. Let's do this then.
Yep.
And it worked. And I said it worked because I felt that it was as good as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, there's no reason why this shouldn't work in my mind.
Don't write plots or stories. Write situations.
Yep.
Write scenarios. Write obstacles.
Yeah, and be prepared for your players to change them and just smile and be like, "That's pretty cool."
Yeah, yeah. Let them be the hero. You know? One of the things I kind of mentioned earlier, like the illusion of free will. I've talked about this a little bit earlier. Is so. It's kind of where you skirt the edge of railroading, and this
Quantum
is kind of where Quantum Ogres comes in. Yeah, Quantum Ogres is the idea that you can move an obstacle up to the point that the characters interact with it because the characters don't know where that obstacle should be placed. So, like you said, we want to go to the warehouse. Okay, well, I wanted you guys to go into the barracks where all the soldiers are, but if you're going into the warehouse, that's cool. The soldiers can be in the warehouse.
They're moving something.
They're moving some whatever. I'll find a reason for them to be in the warehouse, but that's where the fight's going to take place now.
Or like, oh, you're looking for the secret notes, and for whatever at the party. They were in the cabinet, but you're rifling through the desk and picking its lock. Okay, it's there now.
Sure, they're in the desk now. Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
I look behind the painting in the safe. Sure, they're in the safe now.
Yep.
Yeah,
they're where they need
Doesn't
to be.
Doesn't matter. You searched, you found them. That's the important part. And that's kind of where we're talking about the illusion of free will. Is it making your players never feel like they've been hooked, making it always feel like everything was their idea to do.
Right.
Moving those soldiers to have the encounter, it makes it feel like they chose to go to the warehouse, and darn, that's where the soldiers were.
Right.
They don't know that you moved the encounter.
Right.
I'm rifling through the desk. Okay, cool. You find the clue. Oh, was it supposed to be in the safe? No, nobody knows where that clue was supposed to be. The important part is you came up with the idea of searching the desk. You found the clue. You feel like you had agency. Use that agency to find the clue. You're the big damn hero.
Yeah. And I think this leans back into the rule of cool. Like, your players now see that the warehouse is loaded with loaded with troops, and their thing is in the warehouse. Okay, so one of them gets the idea of, I'm going to go start a fire in the kitchen, which is going to pull a bunch of those guys away. You know what? That sounds cool. Sure, go try it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And it works. Why? Because it's a cool thing. And honestly, that sounds pretty cool to me.
Knox in the live chat says, let the dust of deliciousness happen.
That was fantastic.
For those of you who know, the cupcake heard around the world.
It was the cupcake heard around the world. And we talked about this, like when you're watching live plays and you see that moment where the storyteller kind of tenses or breathes funny when the players do something weird and they're all laughing, that's them recalculating right on the spot of, okay, what is the motivation? Is this cool? Everybody's enjoying it. Let's move on.
Yeah, I've had probably well over 1,000 hours watching Matt Mercer storytell.
Yeah.
And I know the exact look on his face he gets when something like that happens. And it's this sort of bemused but confused smile that he gets of like, okay, I'm into it. I'm into the fact that you just flipped my plot on end. Let me do some quick thinking. And I'm confused, but I'm into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, let me think. Okay, yeah, no, that'll work. Roll me this.
Yeah. Like, you guys pulling the person back through the gate.
Yeah.
Like, it worked.
Nobody expects divine intervention.
And it was critical. It was a critical success. I was like, okay, I'm going to need a minute on this one.
Yeah.
I have to think.
You ended the game right there, basically, because you needed, like, a month to think about it.
Right, like, what is this going to affect? How is this going to change things? How is this going to work?
Right.
So that it feels like it's the right thing.
Yeah.
And there's still weight to that decision, like what it's going to mean and how that can be used for you. You guys haven't leaned back into it yet, but there's weight there.
Yeah.
Like, if you want it, there's weight.
Yep.
So what I'm going to say about the rule of cool is, if you look at your players doing something neat and you're like, I wish I was on that side of the table enjoying it with them, be there with them.
Be there with them. You're a player at the table too. Go ahead.
Just accept it and roll with that.
Yep.
Enjoy it.
The
comprehend languages. I wanted to bring this one up. So specifically in regards to this.
Yeah.
There was a scenario on Reddit where someone had literally written a mechanical question. All it was a mechanical question that one of the players in the group had basically, written down the glyphs that they found at a temple.
Sure.
Because
they transcribed
it.
Yeah.
And then presented that to a wizard in the later on, a couple events later, and the person did a comprehend languages, and the question was, would that work? And everybody was just like, yeah, it'll work. Like, I don't see a problem with that. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that you could tell that this writer was questioning whether it should or shouldn't work. And my question was, why did you present it as something that they could do? That was my very first question. Like, it's there. You gave them something and let them do it. Okay, they're interested. Lean into this shit.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Are you prepared? Or are you just not prepared to give them information? Fine. Make it cryptic, but give it weight.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not it is directly about the plot or not is what is important. It has to have some value.
Yeah.
Because the two things are, never lock lore behind a challenge, and two, at the end of a mystery, don't hand them a bag of dog shit.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. So, like, if you run somebody through something and they roll dice and they do something cool, don't hand them a turd burger at the end.
Aside from the fact of, like, just let them... It's just a note. You know,
right.
Let them decipher some glyphs. It's fine.
Yeah.
Like,
give them some lore.
What does it serve you to say no in this instance? Your players are digging for further information about your plot. Like, let them have it, you know?
In a place that you built.
Yeah.
Whether it's virtual, not whatever. You built this.
It reminds me of a discussion I saw around Savage Worlds where somebody was like, am I reading this right? That if a player has the... I forget, was it the respite ability or something like that? It's some power that was in the power set. Basically allows you to, if it's the first thing you cast in the day, to remove a level of fatigue, which basically means that nobody has to sleep. You can just go without sleep, because or you don't have to get a full 8 hours of sleep or something like that, And they're like, doesn't that seem overpowered? And they're like, no. You're talking about expending like 4 of your possibly 10 power points first thing in the morning. You're buying the arcane background. You're buying that power of one of the 3 powers you get with arcane background magic.
Right.
Et cetera, et cetera. It's like you have to invest all this stuff just to duplicate a strong cup of coffee every morning? Like, no. Why are you interested in stopping your players from that?
Yeah. Sure. And honestly, there's a lot of reasons why a character might have invested that much in doing that, because they want more knowledge.
Yeah.
Lean into it.
Let them have it. It's okay.
Yeah.
Not everything needs to be said no to and, the game broken, so that just let them have a nice thing every so and then,
Whatever. Yeah. And believe me, there are ways around fatigue.
They can have a little magicka as a treat.
Right.
Let's get to some questions.
Nevim, we love you.
Nevim.
Thank you for the questions. These are lovely. Starting right off, can you hook players without making it personal for their characters? 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
It's probably better if it's personal, but
honestly, I hook more players than I hook characters.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's flat honest truth.
I mean, there's a certain amount of buy-in.
Yeah.
There's a number of times in which I could very, very easily justify my character saying, you know what, not my circus, not my monkeys, we're moving on.
Yeah.
But the player knows that this is something that she should probably get involved in, so
right.
now, the character has chosen to care.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Is hooking and engaging your players linked to some kind of plot? AKA, do you need to create or have plot in mind in order to get the players engagement?
Not at all.
No.
Not at all. And I will tell you why. I've got some like low-level teen high school melodrama going on in the Mages Guild right now, and a little bit in the Fighters Guild as well.
It's true.
It is something that I deliberately threw in with my NPCs, basically just to make the guilds feel more alive and make you feel like you are the only real characters in the guilds. You know.
No, I think it was a great way to create community and create investment and have things ready for the future.
Mm-hmm.
Have weight.
Yeah.
And value for the future.
Exactly. And I mean, it's laying the groundwork a lot right now in Act 2 for me, but in Act 1 it was literally like Mirabelle has a crush on Tulsi, but Tulsi doesn't know that Mirabelle exists. She's got a crush on Vedran, but Vedran has eyes for Lyrillith, and then Lyrillith gave a box to Mirabelle to give to Tulsi, but then Tulsi didn't want the box, so Mirabelle shattered the box, and Lyrillith was upset because that was her box.
Yeah.
Like, that was the whole thing.
Right. And that was impressive, and at the same time we were all like, oh no, Dios mio.
Nothing to do with any plot, but like everybody cared. Everybody was like, oh, poor Mirabelle, little wee lamb, a little heartbroken,
Yep. No, that's the kind of stuff that you can sell, especially when you have the availability to community. Like if your players are playing in a specific area, like where the scope of the world is tighter, this is fantastic stuff.
Yeah.
Especially if you can get your players to come to a home position.
Yes.
That you can do a lot with that.
I watched a lot of Deep Space Nine, man. I'm familiar with this move.
Yeah. No, and I will say that. If you really want to have really good player investment, make them come home.
Oh, yeah.
Make them come home.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I've noticed this week's title mentioned without railroading. What are the traps in railroading when trying to build a player's engagement?
So, first things first, do not take agency from your players. Railroading is where you take, especially with a character directly, is where you do not get the players' buy-in when dealing with their backstory.
Mm-hmm.
And you drive them at something. If a player looks at you and says, hey, I don't know my parents, and I'm really not interested in going after that because it's their story is that they walked away from all of that to become their own independent person. And then 3 sessions in, you have an uncle show up saying, I knew your parents.
Mm-hmm.
The player doesn't care. They already said that.
Yeah.
That's you're railroading them into something that they did not have buy-in and really don't want to be involved in.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that you got to be careful about, especially when dealing with characters' engagement.
I think the other thing that I've seen pretty commonly is when a player or when a storyteller mistakes their own engagements and interests for the players. Yes. I.e., you think something is cool, so you put it into your game and try to force it upon your players, and your players don't give a crap about it. But you continue with it because, oh no, this is the coolest thing ever. You see this a lot with like DMPCs.
Mm-hmm. No, I see that all the time.
I made this original character, and he's a badass, so he's going to join your party, and he's going to solve everything, and he's 15th level, and he's so much better than you, and like... Stop it. You're just you're basically just telling your own story, and you're not even involving us in it,
Yeah.
But you're expecting all of us to sit here and go, "Ooh, your character is so cool," because you're trying to live out your own power fantasy.
Yeah, or worse yet, you're trying to tell a deep and meaningful theme to the players that is beyond what the plot is actually talking about. You're trying to give them a philosophical discussion about caring about society, and show them that they don't care about society without telling them that without literally explicitly saying that this is going to be a treatment that we're going to be walking through about the perils of respect and actions on society.
Mm-hmm.
It's a political statement that I'm trying to make out of this. Like, that's not cooperative storytelling. That's cramming into someone's face that they are being murder hobos and you don't want them to do that without saying that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's not cool. That's not cool.
All right, so last question. My player's engagement is so focused, they move the story so fast, I cannot keep up the pace. How can I slow them down without breaking their engagement? I don't...
There are creative things that you can do with that. I get where you're coming from, and what I will say to you is this. If you have players who are engaged that tightly with your story that they're running, literally to get more story into their system, you can start pulling roadblocks in other directions. You can start doing red herrings. And making them run a little bit down a different direction. Because, again, they're running, right? And they're not thinking all the scenarios through. That's when you can start playing those games, because your players are so engaged. They're involved. You can bring up their backstories and let those be obstacles to running the narrative, to running the true plot.
Yeah, it sounds like a great time to bring in a B plot or a subplot too.
Yeah.
To kind of trip things up a little bit, throw a complication in.
Yeah.
I would also say make things time sensitive. But not in the sense that they need to be done quickly, but that you have to wait for them.
Yeah, I think the other one that gets me is start thinking of it like a series where there's an end goal. Like the A team was on the run. That was their big thing, but they always needed money. They always needed a place to stay, right? These are the if you start removing elements of Maslow's hierarchy, they're not safe, they're not secure, they're running out of food. Those types of things slow people down because now they have to fulfill those needs. And again, the other thing you can do with them is do the snapshots. Don't run day to day or event to event. There can be things that happen in between. While you're on, they know that they're, oh, we figured out we have to get to this town. Okay, we're gonna go to the Mages Guild and get or whatever and get horses and ride straight to this town. Excellent. The next game is going to be on the way to that town. Oh, we don't get there yet? Nope, something happened along the way.
Mm-hmm.
And you now have an adventure along the way.
Yeah.
Now, does it tell about the world? Does it give more elements about their players? Is it a B plot that gets shoved in? I don't know. Figure that part out. But that gives you time.
Yeah, gives you a week. Gives you a week to figure out what's going to happen at that town when they get there, because you've slowed them down effectively with an obstacle.
And again, that adventure could be exceptionally simple.
Mm-hmm.
What's the motivation? The town's having a celebration. What's the complication? There may or may not be a monster also nearby.
Sure.
Boom. Done.
Bosh.
Yep. Now you know. There's your whole adventure, and the players will literally fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Because they're excited to move on.
Yep.
So.
All right. So our next week's topic is going to be the first Wednesday of the month. So we're going to get right back into our 101 series. And we're going to talk about a little bit about improving. How do you roll with the punches?
What are you ready for what's next? Are your players throwing you a curveball, like we were just kind of talking about a little bit?
Mm-hmm.
Are your players running off into the woods?
Yeah, exactly. So, basically, talking about how to kind of craft things so that you can come up with stuff easily on the fly, adapt to the changes, and then roll with the punches. So you can find us on Twitter at @ST_Conclave, on Instagram at @ST_Conclave. Listen to us live every Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern Time on mixlr.com/storyteller-conclave. And join us up on our Discord. You can find that link on our Twitter, as well as our website, storytellerconclave.com. We'd love to hear some great questions for you. Join the community, ask some questions, and talk to other great storytellers.
We'd like to thank our Patreon members who help us out every single month, especially our name members, Knox in the Box, Subjet, Sam, The Arcane Asylum, Sparkle Motion, Veteran, Hulavu, and Sean. We really appreciate all your help. Our pre-show music is by Arcane Anthems. You can find that at patreon.com/arcaneanthems, or find them on Instagram, I found out. Intro music is by Beyond the Warriors by Geefrog. You can find that at geefrog.bandcamp.com or on YouTube Music. And our outro music is Only Our Footprints in the Sand by Midair Machine. You can find them at freemusicarchive.org.
And a big shout out as always to our families, Vicky and Sean. Thank you so much for loving and supporting us over all these years. All of our friends who've sat with us at our tables all these years and helped us give these great stories to share with you. And you, every single one of our listeners. We love you guys so much.
Love you.
Good night.
Good night.